The cantina was dark and smoky. Strange beings from across the galaxy sat at tables, drinking and talking in low voices. In the corner, an old Zephyrian sat alone at the bar. His name was Vexthal, and he had seen things that would make most creatures run in terror. Vexthal was not like other Zephyrians. His shell was cracked and scarred. One of his big eyes was missing, replaced by a metal patch. His 4 arms moved slowly, like they hurt all the time. He held a purple drink in one clawed hand and stared at nothing. A young Zephyrian walked up to him. This one was different. His shell was bright and clean. His eyes were wide with excitement. He had never been in a real fight. "Commander Vexthal?" the young one asked. "I am Crixta. I heard you fought in the human war." Vexthal did not look at him. He took a slow drink. "Go away, youngster." But Crixta did not leave. He sat on the stool next to the old warrior. "Please, sir. I want to hear about the glory. About how we showed the humans who rules the galaxy." For the first time, Vexthal turned to look at the young soldier. His one good eye was dark and cold. "Glory?" he said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "You think there was glory?" Crixta nodded fast. "Yes, sir. The stories say we crushed them. That humans are weak and stupid." Vexthal made a sound that might have been a laugh, but there was no joy in it. "Weak? Stupid?" He turned back to his drink. "Child, you know nothing about humans. But sir, we won the war, didn't we?" "Won?" Vexthal's voice got very quiet. "We did not win anything. We survived. Barely." Crixta looked confused. "I don't understand." Vexthal finished his drink and ordered another. The bartender, a 6-armed creature with too many teeth, poured the purple liquid quickly and moved away. Even he knew not to bother the old veteran. "You want to know about humans?" Vexthal asked. "You want to know about the war?" He looked at Crixta again. "Then listen. But do not expect stories of glory." "Vex Activen." Crixta leaned closer. 23 years ago, our empire was strong." Vexthal began. "We had conquered 50 worlds. We thought we were the best fighters in the galaxy. Our ships were fast. Our weapons were powerful. Our soldiers followed orders without question." He paused and drank. "Then we found Earth." Crixta's eyes grew wider. "The human homeworld?" "Yes. A small blue planet with 1 moon. Our scouts said it was perfect. Lots of water, good soil. And the creatures living there looked weak. They had no real space fleet, no energy weapons. They were fighting each other instead of working together." Vexthal's voice got darker. "Our leaders were happy. They thought it would be easy. Just land our ships, kill a few humans, and the rest would give up. That is how it always worked with other species." "But it didn't work?" Crixta asked. "No. It did not work." Vexthal's claws scraped against his glass. "The first thing we learned about humans is that they do not give up. Ever." The old warrior was quiet for a moment. Around them, the cantina buzzed with normal sounds. Aliens laughed and argued. But at their corner of the bar, it was silent. "I was young then, like you," Vexthal continued. "I believed in the Empire. I thought we were bringing order to chaos. I thought humans would thank us for saving them from themselves. What happened? We attacked their moon base first. Luna, they called it. It was small. Maybe 1,000 humans. We sent 1 ship. Just 1. We thought that would be enough." Vexthal's voice got very quiet. "It should have been enough. Our ship could have destroyed their whole base with 1 shot. Instead, our captain wanted prisoners. Slaves. So we landed soldiers. And they fought like demons." Vexthal's one eye closed. "Not like any creature we had faced before. When they ran out of bullets, they used knives. When they lost their knives, they used their hands. When they were dying, they used their last breath to scream warnings to their friends. Krixta shifted on his stool. But surely our soldiers won? Oh, we won. We killed them all. But it took 3 hours. 3 hours to kill 1,000 humans with knives and old projectile weapons. Half our soldiers were wounded. 20 were dead. Vexthal opened his eye and looked at Krixta. Do you know what happened next? Krixta shook his head. One human. The last one. He was bleeding from 5 wounds. He could barely stand. Our soldiers thought he was surrendering. They moved closer to capture him. What did he do? He smiled at them. Then he pulled out a small device and pushed a button. He had turned the base's power core into a bomb. The explosion killed him and 30 more of our soldiers. Vexthal drank again. That was when I first realized we had made a terrible mistake. What do you mean? Other species fight for territory, for resources, for honor. They fight until one side is clearly losing. Then the losing side gives up. It is logical. It saves lives. The old warrior's voice became a whisper. Humans do not fight for territory. They fight for each other. And they never, ever give up. Krixta was very quiet now. After Luna Base, we thought Earth would surrender. Instead, their whole planet went to war. Not just their soldiers. Everyone. Old humans. Young humans. Human children. They all started preparing to fight us. How did you know? We had spies. Listening devices. We watched them. In just days, their whole world changed. Factories that made food started making weapons. Schools became training camps. Even their entertainment became about fighting us. Vexthal laughed, but the sound was terrible. We thought they were primitive because they fought each other. We did not understand that fighting each other had made them very, very good at war. The young soldier looked sick. What happened next? Next? Vexthal stood up slowly. His old joints cracked. Next, we learned what it means to fight a species that has been killing each other for thousands of years. Next, we learned why humans are the only species that makes war into an art form. He put money on the bar and started to walk away. Wait, Krixta called. You can't stop there. Vexthal turned back. His scarred face was dark. Come back tomorrow, young one. If you still want to hear about humans after tonight's nightmares, I will tell you about our first real battle with them. I will tell you about the day we lost a fleet to creatures who attacked us with mining ships and kitchen knives. He walked into the darkness, leaving Krixta alone with his thoughts and fears. The next evening, Krixta was waiting when Vexthal walked into the cantina. The young soldier had not slept well. His dreams were full of exploding humans and burning ships. Vexthal sat down at the same stool. The bartender brought his purple drink without being asked. The old warrior looked tired. Like telling these stories hurt him. You came back. Vexthal said. Yes, sir. I need to know. Need. Vexthal took a long drink. Be careful what you think you need, boy. Some knowledge is poison. But Krixta did not leave. He sat and waited. Finally, Vexthal sighed. Very well. Where did I stop? You said humans were good at war. Good? Vexthal shook his head. No, not good. Terrible. They are terrible at war in the most beautiful and horrifying way possible. He stared at his drink. After Luna Base, our high command held meetings. They could not understand what had happened. In our culture, when someone is clearly beaten, they surrender. It saves lives. It makes sense. That is logical, Krixta agreed. Yes. But humans are not logical about war. They are emotional. And that makes them incredibly dangerous. Vexthal's voice became distant, like he was seeing the past. Our generals decided the humans were just poorly trained. They thought if we hit them harder, they would see reason and give up. What did they do? They sent the Fourth Fleet. 20 ships. Enough firepower to turn a continent into glass. I was on the flagship as a junior officer. We were going to show Earth what real power looked like. The old warrior was quiet for a moment. We came out of hyperspace, expecting to see a broken world. Instead, we found them waiting for us. Waiting? Human ships, hundreds of them, not warships, transport ships, cargo haulers, mining vessels, even small pleasure craft, all of them heading straight for us. Crixthal looked confused. Why would they attack you with cargo ships? Because they had turned them into bombs. The word hung in the air like a curse. The first ship that hit us was a grain hauler. Big, slow, and completely unarmored. Our gunners shot at it, but it kept coming. The human pilot was broadcasting on open channels. What was he saying? He was singing. Vexthal's voice cracked a little. Singing some human song about a place called Texas. He was singing when his ship hit our shields and exploded. Vexthal drank deeply. The explosion did not hurt us much. Our shields held. But 10 more ships were right behind him. Then 20. Then 50. They were all bombs? Not all. Some were full of human soldiers. When those ships got close enough, the humans would jump out in spacesuits and try to board our vessels. Can you imagine? Jumping into space with nothing but a thin suit and a weapon, hoping to land on an enemy ship? Crixta could not imagine such madness. Others were full of missiles they had built in their factories, crude things, but there were so many. And some. Vexthal paused. Some were full of human children. Children? Crixta's voice was very small. Not as weapons. As pilots. Human children flying ships toward our fleet, broadcasting messages to their families back home, telling them they loved them, telling them they would see them in whatever afterlife humans believe in. The cantina seemed very quiet around them. We destroyed most of their ships, of course. Our weapons were much better. But they just kept coming. And every ship we killed, every human we murdered, seemed to make the others fight harder. How many ships did they have that day? Maybe 800. By the time the battle was over, we had killed them all. Every single human ship was gone. But we had lost 3 vessels and had damage to 12 more. Against cargo haulers and mining ships. Vexthal's one eye looked at Crixta. Do you understand what that meant? That humans are brave? Brave? Vexthal laughed bitterly. No, boy. It meant that humans could build 800 spaceships in the time it took us to send 1 fleet. It meant their whole planet was now a factory for war. And it meant they were willing to die in numbers that made no sense. What did your commanders do? They panicked. Quietly. But they panicked. See? Zephyrians fight until logic says we should stop. We calculate losses. We think about the future. We surrender when the cost becomes too high. That makes sense. Yes, it does. But humans do not think that way. They had lost 800 ships and thousands of people, and their response was to build more ships. Bigger ships. Better ships. Vexthal's voice became very quiet. Our spies on Earth sent reports. The humans were not sad about their losses. They were angry. Very angry. They took the names of every human who died and put them on monuments. They sang songs about them. They told stories about them to their children. Why? Because humans do not see death in war as a loss to mourn. They see it as a debt to be paid back with interest. The old warrior ordered another drink. Within a week, Earth's factories were producing war materials around the clock. Human civilians were learning to use weapons. Human children were being taught to fight. Even human grandparents were volunteering for dangerous missions. The whole planet? The whole planet. Every human. Men, women, children, old ones, sick ones. All of them preparing for war. Not some of them. All of them. Vexthal looked at his reflection in his drink. We had never seen anything like it. Most species fight with their soldiers, while their civilians hide and hope for peace. Humans turned their entire world into one giant weapon pointed at us. What did the Empire decide to do? What we always do. Apply more pressure. Our leaders sent orders to siege Earth, cut off their supplies, destroy their orbital stations, make them so miserable they would have to surrender. Vexthal's laugh was like breaking glass. We still thought they were like us. We still thought they would be reasonable. But they weren't. No. They were human. And humans, we learned, become more dangerous when they are desperate, not less. The old warrior stood up again. His movements were slow and painful. Tomorrow night, I will tell you about the siege. I will tell you about the day we learned that backing humans into a corner is the worst mistake you can possibly make. Commander? Yes? Were you afraid? Vexthal looked at him for a long moment. Boy, after that first real battle, every Zephyrian soldier was afraid. We were fighting creatures who turned their children into weapons and their love into hate. We were fighting a species that got stronger when they should have gotten weaker. He started walking away, then stopped. Fear was the only smart emotion left. Krixta watched him disappear into the darkness, wondering if he really wanted to hear what came next. On the third night, Krixta arrived early. He had spent the day reading old war reports, trying to understand what Vexthal was telling him. The numbers made no sense. How could an advanced empire struggle against one primitive world? Vexthal looked even older when he arrived. His movements were stiff, and he kept touching his missing eye. Talking about the war was clearly painful for him. You look like you have questions, Vexthal said as he sat down. I read some files today, about the siege of Earth. The reports say, we destroyed their orbital stations in 3 days. We cut off their supply lines. We controlled all space around their planet. That is all true. Then why didn't they surrender? They were trapped. They had no way to get supplies, no way to escape. Vexthal was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was very soft. Because we did not understand what we were dealing with. We thought humans were like other species. We thought they would see the logical thing to do. What did they do instead? They went underground. Literally. In just days, millions of humans disappeared into tunnels and caves and underground cities. They took their weapons and their factories and their anger, and they hid beneath the surface of their world. Krixta frowned. But that meant they were trapped even more. We thought so too, so we sent soldiers down to find them and force them to surrender. The old warrior's one eye became distant. I was part of the first group that went underground in what humans called North America. We were elite soldiers. The best the Empire had. We expected to fight scared civilians hiding in the dark. What did you find? Hell. The word came out like a curse. The tunnels were not random. They were planned. Humans had spent weeks preparing them. Every passage had traps. Every room had hidden weapons. Every corner could hide death. Every corner. Every corner. Vexthal's claws scraped against his glass. The first trap killed 3 of my soldiers. It was simple. A hole covered with thin material, with sharp metal spikes at the bottom. One of our scouts stepped on it and fell through. The spikes were covered with human waste to cause infection. That's horrible. That was nothing. As we went deeper, the traps got worse. Explosive devices hidden in walls. Poisonous gas that would fill a room when we entered. Pits full of acid. And always, humans watching from the shadows. The old warrior drank deeply. But the worst part was not the traps. It was the humans themselves. What do you mean? They had changed. Living underground, fighting for their world. It had changed them. The civilians we expected to find, cowering in fear, had become something else. Something terrible and beautiful and completely insane. Vexthal's voice dropped to a whisper. I watched a human female, barely adult, charge 5 of our soldiers with nothing but a knife made from scrap metal. She was screaming words we could not understand. She killed 2 of them before we brought her down. Was she a soldier? No. She was a teacher. Before the war, she taught human children how to read. The war had turned her into a killer who fought like a demon. Krixta felt sick. What happened to your unit? We got lost. The tunnels were like a maze, and humans kept changing them, blocking passages, opening new ones. After 2 days, we had no idea where we were. Our communications did not work underground. We were alone in the dark with creatures that knew every inch of their territory. Vexthal's voice became very quiet. On the 3rd day, we found a chamber full of human children. The cantina noise seemed to fade away. They were very young, maybe 6 or 7 years old in human terms. We thought finally we had found helpless civilians. Our commander ordered us to secure them so we could use them to make their parents surrender. What happened? The children smiled at us, then they started singing. Krixta waited. It was some human song about sleeping. Very peaceful and sweet. While they were singing, they pulled small devices from their clothes. Grenades. Explosive devices. The children were walking bombs. No. Yes. The explosion brought down part of the tunnel roof, killed 4 of my soldiers, trapped the rest of us for hours. Human children had turned themselves into weapons to protect their families. Vexthal's one eye closed. That was when I realized we were not fighting an army. We were fighting an entire species that had decided to die rather than lose. How did you get out? Human rescue workers dug us out. Rescue workers? Yes. They saved us so their soldiers could capture us properly. They wanted prisoners to trade for their people we held on ships. Even when they were killing us, they were thinking about saving their own. The old warrior opened his eye and looked at Krixta. We spent 2 months in a human prison camp. Do you know what they fed us? No. Good food. Real food. Better than what our own army gave us. They gave us medical care. They let us send messages to our families. They treated us better than we had treated their civilians. Why? Because even in war, humans have rules. Strange rules that make no sense, but rules. They will kill you without mercy if you threaten their families. But once you are captured and helpless, they will take care of you like you are their own children. Vexthal drank again. The human commander of the prison camp was a female named Sarah. She had lost her mate and 3 children in our orbital bombardment. She had every reason to hate us. Instead, she taught me to speak their language. Why would she do that? Because she said understanding your enemy makes you stronger than hating them. And because humans believe that even enemies can become friends if you treat them right. The old warrior was quiet for a moment. Sarah was right. After the war, she and I became friends. I was at her funeral 5 years ago. Her grandchildren called me Uncle Vex. Krixta did not know what to say. But I am getting ahead of myself. Back then, we were still at war, and the humans were just beginning to show us what they could really do. What do you mean? The siege was supposed to break them. Instead, it made them creative. They started building new kinds of weapons. Not just guns and bombs, but weapons we had never imagined. Like what? Psychological weapons. They would broadcast messages to our ships, videos of human families talking about their dead children, music that somehow made our soldiers sad and afraid, stories about what humans would do to us if we did not leave their world alone. Vexthal's voice became darker. And they started hunting our supply ships. How? They were trapped on their planet. They built ships from scraps. Tiny one-person vessels that could barely fly. Humans would pilot them into space and attack our cargo carriers with primitive weapons. That's suicide. Yes. And they did it anyway. Every day, more human ships would appear from nowhere and attack our fleets. Most of them were destroyed immediately, but some would get through. And every supply ship they destroyed made our situation worse. How long did the siege last? 2 years. 2 years of fighting humans who refused to give up. 2 years of losing soldiers to people who turned everything into a weapon. 2 years of watching our proud empire slowly get beaten by creatures who should have surrendered after the first week. Vexthal stood up slowly. Tomorrow, I will tell you about the day the siege ended. About the Battle of Mars, where we learned that humans do not just fight to win. They fight to teach their enemies never to threaten them again. Commander? Yes? How many humans died in those 2 years? Vexthal was quiet for a very long time. Too many. Far too many. But do you know what the terrible thing is? Singh was in Anam. Ask. Tang won. Vexthal. What? It was not enough. No number of human deaths was enough to make the survivors surrender. The more we killed, the angrier they became. We were fighting a species that treated death as fuel for revenge. 80. He walked away, leaving Krixta alone, with the growing understanding that his people had not fought a war. They had fought a nightmare. The fourth night was different. Vexthal arrived at the cantina, walking even slower than usual. His one good eye looked haunted, and his hands shook slightly as he held his drink. Krixta had never seen the old warrior look so broken. Are you all right, sir? No. Vexthal said simply. I have not been all right for 20 years. Tonight, I tell you about Mars. About the day our empire learned what true horror looks like. He took a long drink and stared at nothing for a moment. After 2 years of siege, our commanders were getting desperate. Earth was supposed to be broken by then. Instead, the humans were getting stronger. How is that possible? They learned from everything we did to them. Every weapon we used, they found ways to copy or improve. Every tactic we tried, they found counters for. They were getting better at war while we were getting tired of it. Vexthal's voice was hollow. So our high command decided to end it once and for all. They would attack Mars. The Red Planet? Yes. Humans had colonies there. Mining operations. Research stations. Maybe 50,000 people total. Our leaders thought if we conquered Mars, we could use it as a base to finish the siege of Earth. The old warrior's claws scraped against the bar. It seemed logical. Mars was far from Earth. The humans there were scientists and miners, not soldiers. It should have been easy. Indated. A redder-mender. But it wasn't. We sent our entire second fleet. 40 ships. Our best commanders. I was promoted to ship captain by then, in charge of a destroyer called the Razor's Edge. Vexthal was quiet for a long moment. When we arrived at Mars, the humans were waiting for us again. But this time was different. This time, they were not attacking us. What were they doing? They were leaving. Krixta looked confused. Leaving? Evacuation ships were flying away from Mars as fast as they could go. Hundreds of them. We thought, finally, the humans were being smart. They were running away instead of fighting. Vexthal's one eye closed. We were so happy. Our admiral ordered the fleet to land and secure the mining facilities. He wanted to start using them immediately. I was not god of people. That sounds reasonable. Yes. It was reasonable. It was logical. It was exactly what humans knew we would do. The old warrior opened his eye and looked at Krixta. Do you know what humans had been doing on Mars for 2 years while we besieged Earth? Mining? Yes, mining. But not for metals or minerals. They had been mining holes. Thousands and thousands of holes. Deep into the planet's core. And they had been filling those holes with explosives. The truth hit Krixta like a physical blow. No. Yes. The entire planet was one giant trap. Every mining facility. Every research station. Every landing pad. All of it was connected to enough explosive to crack Mars open like an egg. Vexthal's voice became very quiet. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that not all the humans had evacuated. What do you mean? Some had stayed behind. Volunteers. They hid in the facilities and waited for us to land. Their job was to make sure we got comfortable. Make sure our entire fleet was on the surface before they triggered the explosives. That's insane. Yes. It was completely insane. And it was brilliant. And it was the most human thing possible. The old warrior drank deeply. We landed on Mars, thinking we had finally won something. Our soldiers took control of the mining stations. Our engineers started examining the human equipment. Our admiral sent a message to the High Command saying, Mars was ours. What happened then? I was in my ship, writing reports, when my communications officer picked up a transmission from the surface. It was a human voice, speaking our language. Vexthal's voice cracked. The human said, This message is for the Zephyrian High Command. You wanted Mars. You can have it. All of it. Give our regards to whatever hell you believe in. And then? Then, Mars exploded. The cantina seemed to hold its breath. Not all at once. The humans were smarter than that. They triggered the explosives in waves, starting from the edges of our landing areas and moving inward. They wanted to make sure none of our ships could escape. Vexthal's one eye stared at nothing. I watched mountains collapse. I watched the surface of the planet crack and split like broken glass. I watched 40 of the Empire's best ships disappear into holes that opened beneath them. How did you survive? Luck. My ship was on the edge of the landing zone. When the explosions started, I ordered emergency takeoff. We barely made it into space before the ground where we had been standing became a crater half a mile deep. How many ships escaped? 3. Out of 40. 3 ships, and maybe 200 survivors, out of 20,000 soldiers. The old warrior's hands shook as he reached for his drink. But the humans were not finished with us yet. What do you mean? Those evacuation ships that had left Mars before we arrived? They had not gone home. They had been waiting in the asteroid belt, watching us die. And now, they came to finish the job. But they were civilians, right? Scientists and miners? Vexthal laughed. But there was no humor in it. There are no human civilians in wartime. Only humans, waiting for their chance to kill you. What did they do? They attacked us while we were trying to rescue survivors from the surface. We were in chaos. Our commanders were dead. Our ships were damaged. We had no way to coordinate our defenses. How did civilians attack warships? With anything they could find. Mining charges strapped to small ships. Drilling equipment turned into weapons. One human rammed our command ship with a cargo hauler full of metal ore. Vexthal's voice became very soft. I watched a human child, maybe 12 years old, pilot a mining pod straight into our engines. She was singing that same song from the first battle, the one about Texas. A child whose parents had died when we bombed Earth. A child who chose to die, killing us, rather than live in a universe where her family was gone. The old warrior was quiet for a long time. That day, we lost the Second Fleet. We lost Mars. We lost 20,000 soldiers. But worst of all, we lost our confidence. What do you mean? Mars proved that humans could destroy anything we valued faster than we could take it. It proved they were willing to sacrifice entire planets to hurt us. It proved that there was no limit to what they would do to protect their species. Vexthal finished his drink. After Mars, everything changed. We stopped trying to conquer humans. We started trying to survive them. What did the Empire do? They panicked. Quietly, professionally, but they panicked. Our leaders realized they had created something they could not control. They had turned Earth into a forge that produced the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. How? By threatening the one thing humans care about more than their own lives, their families, their children, their future. Vexthal stood up slowly. Tomorrow night, I will tell you about the end. About the day humans stopped defending their world and started hunting us across the galaxy. About the day the Empire learned that making enemies of humans is the worst mistake any species can make. Commander, how many humans died on Mars? The ones who stayed behind to trigger the explosives? Maybe 500. They died for nothing? No. Vexthal's voice was firm. They died to send a message. They died to tell the galaxy that humans would rather destroy everything they had built than let someone else take it from them. He started walking away, then stopped. Krixta? Yes, sir? After tomorrow. When I finish this story, promise me something. Morning. After tomorrow. Morning. Morning. What? If you ever meet humans in your career, treat them with respect. Not fear. Not hatred. Respect. They earned it with blood and sacrifice, and a kind of courage that most species cannot even imagine. Vexthal disappeared into the darkness, leaving Krixta to wonder what could possibly be worse than what he had already heard. On the fifth night, Krixta arrived to find Vexthal already waiting. The old warrior looked different somehow. Calmer, maybe, like telling this story, was finally freeing him from something he had carried for too long. You look ready to hear the end, Vexthal said. I think so, though I'm not sure I want to. Good. That means you are learning wisdom. Vexthal ordered his drink and turned to face the young soldier. The last part of the story is the hardest to tell. Not because it was the most violent, but because it was the most human. What do you mean? You will understand when I finish. Vexthal took a sip of his purple drink. After Mars, the war changed completely. We stopped attacking Earth. We had no choice. Every time we tried to take something from humans, they destroyed it rather than let us have it. So the war was over? Oh no, the war was just beginning. Because now the humans stopped defending and started hunting. Krixta felt cold despite the warm air in the cantina. You have to understand. For 3 years, we had been fighting humans on their territory. We controlled space. We chose when and where to attack. We had every advantage. But not anymore? No. Mars taught humans that they could not just wait for us to attack. They had to take the fight to us, and they had spent 3 years learning everything about our technology, our tactics, our weaknesses. Vexthal's voice became distant. The first sign that everything had changed came 6 months after Mars. A Zephyrian supply depot in the Kepler system just disappeared. Disappeared? Gone. The entire facility. 50 ships, 10,000 tons of supplies, 500 personnel. All of it vanished. Overnight. How? At first we thought it was equipment failure. Maybe a reactor explosion. We sent investigators. They found nothing but empty space and debris that had been carefully arranged to spell out words in human language. What did it say? This is only the beginning. Vexthal's one eye stared at his reflection in his drink. That was when we realized humans had not just learned to copy our technology. They had learned to improve it. Somehow, they had built ships that could move through space faster and quieter than anything we had. How is that possible? Because humans do not think like us. We design ships to be efficient and logical. Humans design them to kill enemies and protect friends. Their priorities make them creative in ways we never imagined. The old warrior was quiet for a moment. Over the next year, human attack groups appeared everywhere. Our trade routes, our patrol fleets, our home systems. They moved like ghosts, striking fast and disappearing before we could respond. What were they after? Everything. Supplies, information, prisoners. But mostly, they wanted us to know that nowhere was safe. Vexthal's claws scraped against his glass. The attacks followed a pattern. Humans would target our weakest ships first, learning our defenses. Then they would hit our supply lines, making us hungry and desperate. Then they would attack our communication networks, making us blind and afraid. That sounds like what we did to Earth. Exactly. Humans had learned siege warfare from us, and now they were using it better than we ever had. They turned our own tactics against us and made them perfect. What did the Empire do? What any sensible government would do. They tried to negotiate peace. Krixta looked surprised. They gave up? Not gave up. Recognized reality. After 4 years of war, we had lost more ships and soldiers than in the previous century of expansion. Our economy was collapsing. Our people were terrified to leave their home systems. Vexthal drank slowly. But when our diplomats tried to contact Earth, they discovered something terrifying. What? Humans do not have one government. They have dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of different groups that all had to agree to any peace treaty. How is that possible? Because humans are not like us. We have one empire, with one ruler, and clear chains of command. Humans have nations and tribes and cities and families, all making their own decisions. The old warrior's voice became quiet. Some human groups wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to keep fighting until every Zephyrian was dead. Some wanted to conquer our worlds. Sense can stay, to and climb. Some just wanted us to leave them alone forever. How do you make peace with chaos? Very carefully. It took our diplomats 2 years just to figure out who they needed to talk to. And every day, they spent negotiating. More human ships appeared in our territory. Vexthal looked at Krixta. Do you want to know the strangest part? What? The humans who were attacking us were also protecting our civilians. What do you mean? Human raiders would destroy our warships and steal our supplies. But if they found Zephyrian families, or medical ships, or passenger vessels, they would escort them to safety. They had rules about who they would kill and who they would protect. Even during war? Especially during war. Humans believe that how you treat your enemies shows who you really are. Even when they were killing us, they were trying to be better than us. The old warrior finished his drink. The peace negotiations finally ended after the Battle of Proxima. What happened there? Proxima Centauri was one of our most important systems, the center of our regional government. When humans appeared there with a fleet of captured Zephyrian ships, our high command knew the war was lost. They attacked your capital? No. They surrounded it. Thousands of human ships, all broadcasting the same message in perfect Zephyrian language. What did they say? We do not want your worlds. We do not want your people. We want you to remember this day. We want you to remember that humans can reach any place you think is safe. We want you to remember that threatening our families means we will hunt you across the galaxy until justice is done. But we also want you to remember that we choose mercy over vengeance. Today, ATM. We TA. ATM. Vexthal was quiet for a long moment. Then they left. All of them. Just turned around and flew back to human space, leaving us alive and humiliated and grateful. They could have destroyed your capital? Easily. With the ships they had captured from us, they could have turned Proxima into a graveyard. Instead, they showed us mercy and made sure we knew it was a choice, not weakness. What happened next? Peace. Real peace. Not surrender or conquest, but an agreement between equals. Humans kept all the technology they had captured from us. They kept all the territory they had taken. But they also helped us rebuild our damaged worlds. Krixta looked confused. They helped you? After everything that happened? Yes. Because that is what humans do. They fight like demons when they are threatened. But once the threat is gone, they try to heal the damage. Vexthal smiled for the first time in 5 days. I spent the last 20 years working with human engineers to design new ships. Ships that both our species use now. My best friend is a human named Jack, who lost his brother in the siege of Earth. How can you be friends with someone whose brother you killed? Because Jack understands something that took me years to learn. War is not about hatred. It is about protecting what you love. Once the war was over, Jack and I discovered we loved the same things. Peace, family, the future. The old warrior stood up slowly. Today, human ships patrol our border systems, protecting them from pirates and raiders. Zephyrian engineers work on Earth, helping humans explore new star systems. Our children learn each other's languages in school. So humans are not monsters? No more than we are. They are what any species becomes when their families are threatened. They are what we would be if we loved as deeply and fought as fiercely as they do. Vexthal put money on the bar and started to walk away. Then he stopped and looked back at Krixta. Do you know what the most important lesson of the war was? What? Humans do not fight to destroy their enemies. They fight to protect their friends. If you remember that, if you treat them with the respect they earned, in blood and sacrifice, you will find no better allies in the galaxy. And if you threaten them, Vexthal's one good eye grew dark. Then pray to whatever gods you believe in that they choose to show mercy. Because if they do not, you will learn what it means to fight a species that turns love into a weapon and hope into a shield. As if summoned by his words, 3 humans entered the cantina. They were laughing and talking, carrying the easy confidence of people who had nothing to fear. One of them, an older human with gray hair and kind eyes, noticed Vexthal and walked over. Vex. Good to see you, old friend. How are you doing? Vexthal's scarred face broke into a genuine smile. Hello, Jack. I am well. This is Krixta, a young soldier who wanted to hear about the war. Jack looked at Krixta with gentle eyes. I hope Vex did not scare you too much. We were not always friends, but that was a long time ago. He told me about your brother. I am sorry for your loss. Jack nodded. Thank you. He died fighting for something he believed in. That is all any of us can ask for. He clapped Vexthal on the shoulder. Take care of yourself, my friend. And remember, you are welcome on Earth anytime. As Jack rejoined his human friends, Krixta watched them with new eyes. They looked so ordinary, so harmless. But now, he knew the truth. They do not look dangerous, he said quietly. No. Vexthal agreed. They do not. Until they need to be. That is what makes them so terrifying and so wonderful. The old warrior walked into the darkness one last time, leaving Krixta alone with the humans and his thoughts. Somewhere in the cantina, someone was singing. It sounded like a lullaby. It sounded like peace.